Okay, because, all right. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Finance Committee being held on Monday, August 9th at 6:33 p.m. Roll call, we have Representative Bruce Flax, Representative Sean Powers, Representative Chase Foster, Representative Kathy Chase, and Representative Clarence Casper, and myself, Representative Washington. We have no unfinished business, and our new business. Oh, I'm sorry. I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. I appreciate it that you took time out of your busy schedules to come to the Finance Committee meeting. I think we might have another meeting down the road. I'm not sure, but I'll let you know. But thank you, everyone, for coming to tonight's meeting. The first order of business and the only order is the land acquisition. So, let me see. So would someone like to make a motion to recommend approval of the purchase of the Wolfbrook property to the full RTM and to have the town manager sign all necessary documents to close on the property? Do I have
I'll
a
make the
motion?
motion.
Okay, Sean, and do I have a
Second.
second? Okay, second, Bruce.
You think we need to also do the put in it the allowing the authorizing the transfer of funds, or do you think it's enough that we say doing all paperwork?
I'll defer to Bruce since he was a mayor at one time and on the town council. He'll know better than I would about that.
John, you're asking if the amount of money should be in the,
Well, willing to approve, right, the budget, associated budget transfer, which would be for 220,000, which we wouldn't do unless we actually came up with the rest of the money, but I just like it to be clear.
I would say that we probably don't need to, but I'll be honest with you, Chairman, I would defer to John, the town manager. If he thinks it should be, I would follow his lead, but
Maybe add to and authorize the associated budget amendment, maybe something, or fund transfer to that effect, something simple.
All right, what do you want to add, John? And authorize?
The associated fund transfer to the money's going to go it's going to all come out of. Well, we'll get into it. I think a generic statement's enough, like that, to authorize associated budget transfer.
Okay, you don't think we should have a specific number?
You could do associated budget transfer in the total amount of 210 or 220,000.
Okay, in the amount of 220,000, right? Okay. Okay, so Sean, you still want to make that motion, and Bruce, you still want a second with the addition to the other motion?
Yeah, sure. I'll reread it as what's on the
Okay.
paper.
Okay,
Whereas the town of Groton will contribute 220,000 towards the purchase price of the property, and Groton Open Space Association will contribute up to 210,000 towards the purchase price of the property. 18,000 will be contributed via additional grants, fundraising, or donation, and now therefore be it. I mean, I can put the 352,000 as well for the open space. The
know what?
DEP in the open space.
As I look at it, the town council approved all necessary documents, so we could probably leave it as is. As long as everybody's okay with that.
all right,
Sorry.
all right, are we going back to the original motion?
Yeah, let's just
Yeah.
keep the original. I think that's fine. It gets confusing otherwise.
Okay, so we're going back to the motion that this sets all the way up to, we authorize the town manager to sign all necessary documents to close on the property.
Right.
Okay, and Sean made that motion and Representative Flack seconded it. Right? Okay, all those in favor, oh, not yet, sorry, discussion. So you know where the property is on Knowing Ledgett Road? I forget, what is it, 161 acres or something, right, John Reiner? Are you gonna walk us through it, John?
I can. If you all just want to vote, that's great. That was probably one of the easiest meetings I've ever had to attend. I'll be very brief. If folks have watched any council meetings, I think the packet had a fair bit of information in it about the property, but it's known as the Wolfbrook property. It's approximately 161 acres. And I say approximately, we haven't completed the final surveying, land survey of the property yet, but there is one in place. The property is located on No Anchorage Road, and it in the past was had some level of approval for an age-restricted development. The developers did not move forward with that. There were some Army Corps of Engineer approvals in place, and the property owner had reached out to us about the town purchasing this property. This property would be used for passive recreation, so hiking trails, not ball fields. There's a lot of wetlands on the property, but in addition to the natural features on the property of all the habitat which is there, which is quite extensive, it's also a significant piece of property from a historical perspective, from a Native American grounds and the battle at Mystic Fort and part of the major retreat there. So there's a lot of things on the property there that we'd like to keep intact, so that any development there would certainly have an impact too. I usually, from a professional standpoint, try to shy away from protecting a lot of big pieces of property that have access to water and sewer. But again, this property is very unique in what it offers. And I think it's a great asset for the town and the state to really work towards preservation here. As I think it was mentioned a little bit in discussion on the motion, the town's going to be contributing up to $220,000. The Groton Open Space Association, working with us, is going to contribute up to $210,000. We've been working with some folks around town to do some fundraising to make up that shortfall of the additional money, in addition to the DEEP grant that we did get. And then also the state of Connecticut has applied for a group of grants under the NAWCA grant program, which is the North America Wetland Conservation Act. And there's a pretty good chance that we'll get some additional funding for that. And if so, not only will it make up the remainder of what we need, but if we get that grant, no promises, it would also lower the contribution of the town and GOSA both. So that's kind of what's going on with this property right now. Happy to answer any specific questions.
And just to add where the funds are coming from, we have 74,000 currently in the open space fund. We would take the other 146,000 out of the capital reserve unassigned balance and move it over to the open space fund to do the purchase. And we wouldn't do those till we knew the final numbers and that it's going through.
John, can you repeat that, John Burke? Can you repeat
Sure,
that again?
sure. 74,000 is currently the fund balance in the open space fund.
Okay.
And
Go ahead.
146,000 from the capital reserve fund unassigned balance. We would transfer those dollars over to the open space fund. We would do it all out of the open space fund.
Okay. Okay. John Reiner, what other grants did you say we might apply for?
So we have not applied for another grant, but the state of Connecticut has already applied. We actually fell into a spot that was someone else's that had walked away from a potential grant application called the NAWCA. NAWCA is the abbreviation for that grant. And that's something that's pending right now. It's a federal grant, and the state applies for that on behalf of us. So all we had to do was give them basically the paperwork that we had submitted for the grant from DEEP.
How much was that grant for? The NACA one?
Right off the top of my head, I don't have it. I'm sorry, I'm having some computer issues, so I don't have that, but it was over $150,000.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for either John Reiner or the town manager?
I have some, Bev, if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
So for the record, I know it was already talked about, but we weren't recording. For the record, how much open space are we going to be accumulating in the town? Because I know last count it was at 21%. Do you have a goal in mind? Whoever can answer that.
So the state goal is actually 21% in the state, and that's a number that we have already hit. So I think the town moving forward should be very strategic in how they look at acquiring open space or additional recreation land. And we do have a fair amount of open space in town. A good amount of the water resource protection district in town is already protected. And I think there's a lot of pockets of open space around town. So it's not a major initiative or effort that we often do looking for additional open space. This property, as I said, offers more than just open space, but a lot of historical value to it also.
Thank you. And so if the fundraising, I know you only need to raise 18,000. If there more is raised than the 18,000, will that knock down our 220 share? Or do you not anticipate getting more than 18?
I don't think the fundraising, if it's quite substantial, then I think the town in GOSA and the funders that we're working with to fundraise this will work that out. I know that there's also money needed for the closing attorneys, and I know it would be good to have some funding set aside for maintenance of the property in the future. But if we raised $100,000, could I see some of the funding going down proportionately? I certainly could.
So that let's see, what is the total amount? The 800. It's 800,000. So that 800,000 does not include closing costs and things like that. That is just strictly the cost of the land. Yes.
Correct. That is the cost of the land.
Okay. So you talked about the NACA grant. If we is that a done deal? Can we get it because somebody else gave it up, or you don't know that?
Oh, no. So it was part of an application process that takes the state some time to put together. And one of the properties that they had in another municipality fell through. So we took that spot for the application. We do not, the award has not been given yet. So it's not a done deal. So that's just something we're waiting on, but there is a good chance of it.
Okay, good. So I know you don't know the exact number, but you said approximately 150. Will that reduce our 220?
Yes.
Awesome. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you so much, John.
You're welcome.
John, do we have an idea when we will hear about the NACA grant?
It actually could even be after we close on the property. It could be late fall or early winter.
Okay.
So it might be something that initially we outlay the funding, but then we end up getting a reimbursement back. So that's something, as time goes on, we're still learning more about that.
When do you hope to close on the property if this is approved?
The property owner would love us to close on this prior to the end of this calendar year. So we're trying to, once we get, the final step of approval here from the RTM, if that's granted, then we have to get the survey updated, finalize the conservation easement. I'm in the process right now of getting bids for a phase 1 environmental assessment to just, do our due diligence on the property, getting the title work done. So those things just take a little bit of time. And then running all that through the state of Connecticut because they are going to be a co-holder on the easement.
Do you have an estimated cost, how much that's going to cost us?
We're actually waiting on an estimate for the survey update. The majority of the property's already been surveyed, but there might need to be just an update done for that. I'm not expecting that to be a significant sum. A phase 1 environmental is probably going to be somewhere around the range of $3,000, which we have available within our my department budget right now. The title work should be pretty insignificant. That's something that that we can carry. So not significant costs on the closing side of things, but they're all things that we could get reimbursed potentially for based on fundraising and some other things.
Do we have to have all the money in hand at closing? Do we have to have all the $800,000? Or do we, like when you buy a house, do you have to take a mortgage out?
No, there's no mortgage here.
So do we have to have the whole $800,000 when we
Yes.
close on the property?
Yes, so that'll,
Okay.
and that's where we come to the table, GOSA comes to the table, Deep comes to the table, and then the fundraising that will be working with some other partners in town to come up with that additional funding.
And what is that additional funding again for fundraising?
I believe it was about $18,000.
Okay, all right, good. If you would say like 150,000 or 200, I would be a little nervous. Would we be able to fundraise that much? But 18,000, that's not too bad.
Yeah. It should also be said that the purchase and sales agreement is all contingent upon getting all the proper necessary approvals at the local level, making sure all the things are done correctly for the DEEP grant, council and RTM approval for this 220, as well as successfully fundraising for the remaining amount.
And a free and clear title?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there anything in the sales agreement that we should know about? That we
I
should be
think
concerned with or just know
no,
about?
I think it's a pretty straightforward transaction.
Okay. All right, thank you.
We do have two hands up, Chairman Washington. Chase Foster was up first and then Sean Powers.
Okay, Chase?
Oh, thank you. So does this, does the developer or any of the parties involved own any other properties in town? And I know it's under the Wolf Creek or Wolf Brook LLC, but it looked like the owners had maybe some other LLCs that had properties in town.
The owner of the property, I believe that they own other properties in town.
Okay, I was trying to look on the Groton GIS just to see what they bought it for. Do you know what they purchased the property for?
Not right off the top of my head.
Okay, and I apologize if this was discussed in any of the other meetings, but just in terms of the price that we're procuring it for, was there any other parts of that deal, or just was just the sale of this property?
I'm not really sure what you mean.
I mean, in terms of the deal,
This sale is being done all by itself.
okay, yep, that's all I was asking.
This property owner is not taking any other developments through our process right now that I'm aware of.
Okay, that's all I was asking.
Okay. It should also be mentioned that we're purchasing this significantly below appraised value.
Right.
Okay. And lastly, I was trying to find the plan of conservation and development for the town, and I don't know if I'm just if this was a user error on my side. I struggled to find it on the website. But is the 2016, is that the last
Yes.
revision of that? Okay.
Yes, it is. And
Okay.
unfortunately, even though it was adopted in 2016, a lot of the work on it was done back in 2011 through 13. So that's something in the next couple of years, we are going to start working on another one of those. It took some time to actually get that adopted.
Okay. So personally, I'm a huge fan of trails. I run on them constantly, whether it's Towns End, BB Pond. I guess just looking at this, though, on the west side of town, we have been getting rid of a lot of the school properties, and this is, when you look at it on a map, granted it is where it is, but it is away from that side of town. I just didn't know if there was I know we've talked about other properties, some ledge area on the Thames River side. I just didn't know what the long-term strategy was in terms of trying to spread out some of this green space across the town itself so that everybody had access close by.
The town did at their last council meeting, except about John, do you remember what that open, is it 22-ish acres, somewhere in that
Yeah.
ballpark? Somewhere in the ballpark of 22-ish acres over on the west side. It's off of North Pleasant Valley, just soon after it becomes North Pleasant Valley. So on the east side of the highway there, or of the Route 12. So we just took possession of that. It was part of a subdivision where you can either donate land or else money. So we did accept the donation of the land. It's nice walking. It's you're not gonna get ball fields in there. It's a lot of terrain difference in there. It's an interesting piece of property. I've walked it a couple of times now. But we're continuing to try to, we actually have an item coming up soon on the town, one of the town council meetings where we're going to talk about what we can do more on the west side to try to keep things balanced or balance them better. That is a priority. And I don't think we would have pursued this if there wasn't so much value to this property historically and ecologically, recreationally too.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Appreciate it.
Okay, Sean?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Chase, just for your value, there's 2,200 acres that we put in for the Navy. So there's a lot of land over here that's open that they built houses on that we don't have here. Gunjewamp Road is the only place that I know from where I live in the standpoint that I live in, and we're divided by Route 12. So it's really hard to gather open space up here. I think the school said they were holding on to the Morrison School for different reasons, but to know the area here and to live over here, because I live right on the river, it's really tough with the development and the base being on the river to have any open space. But there's plenty of places to go that are well within cycling distance, because I ride a bicycle all over the place that give us the opportunity to go places. You know, we have the dog park, and then we have what is it over there, John? Do you know where you can go down by the reservoir? The dog park's down there. I forget the name of the park, but we used to bring the dog down there, and there's a bunch of trails that are
Cop
all.
property?
Yeah, the Cop property. That's correct.
Yep.
And, you know, so it's really, we're in a tough location right here to get and gather open space if you're right on the river. And, you know, there's not much we can do about it. I mean, I think that the school properties, we're getting the most value we can out of what we're doing when we're redeveloping the schools. And I think these guys are doing a great job. The community as a whole is growing, and we're keeping our tax base where we need it to be. Then this property here is going to add to our base to have recreational areas, even if you have to get in a car or you got to ride a bike somewhere. The one question I had for John Reiner was this: at least from the document that I read for the purchase and sales agreement, we're also going to do an environmental study too, a phase 2 study as well as one. And what do we know that might have been toxic on that property? Do we have anything that we know of that was done there? Like, you know, there's not a dumping ground for waste oil, and, you know, I don't know what those people did there.
No, so generally we're going to do a phase 1. We would only kick it up to a phase 2 if there was a red flag that was raised in the phase 1.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure because I read what I read in the purchase and sales agreement that you guys sent to us. So I also noticed in this that I did some real quick figures in my head here. And I mean, with what we're doing, we're paying, I think it's like $1,366.45 per acre for this without the $150,000 grant. If we get the no WACA one or whatever from the federal government. So to buy open space for that and to have the historical value that property has and to be able to turn it into light recreational use, it's a no-brainer, because I didn't really want to spend, when I first looked at this, I didn't think it was appropriate to spend $800,000 on land that, we didn't really, it's a lot of money for the land. And then I went and looked at the appraisal, like you said, and then I also saw that I think, I don't know, maybe John Burt, somebody negotiated from 880,000 because that's what they were asking for, to 800. Well, John Reiner, there you go. So you're doing your job. Thanks again. And, I'm all for what we're doing. I looked at it, and when I first looked at it, it was different. I wasn't all sure about it. So.
And I think the original price was up over $1 million, wasn't it, John? Their asking price that they had it out there for.
Yeah, the property owner was looking for, I think it was 1.1 initially for the sale.
And with the way the property sales are going, if they redid the appraisal, it might be worth more now. So, one thing to mention, I just looked it up for the acreage we just accepted off Pleasant Valley, North, it's 20.5. So just to, correct the record. So, I
Representative-
inflated by one,
I'm sorry, go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
nothing, go ahead.
Representative Flax has this.
Thank you, Chairman Washington. Two things. One is I got to leave very soon, so I'm hoping after my comment we vote. But I wanted to clarify, John. I don't know if you know this or John does, but who will have the use? Who will dictate what the uses are on the land? I know that we'd had some open space properties that GOSA had where they limited like horse use and limited dog use, and I think my reason for asking is I'd want the whole town, I want everyone to be able to use it for the majority of uses and make sure that there isn't one entity overseeing it and making restrictions that maybe the town wouldn't agree with or that kind of thing.
Yeah, great question. So really, there's a few moving parts to this. One of these is the conservation easement that DEEP approves consistent with the grants that we get. So I think the biggest limiting factor for future uses is when we get these grants, they say, all right, you can do X and you cannot do Y. There's a little bit of negotiation wiggle room on that, and we certainly push that. Then once that is all figured out, we would be looking to establish some type of an oversight committee that we would want, because GOSA is giving us $210,000 towards the purchase of this property. They certainly want to be involved in the future management of the property, but they would not have the veto say over whether or not the trail is going to be 5 feet wide or 6 feet wide or something like that. It's something that I think a lot of the bigger issues, the town manager would be involved, the director of public works, the Parks and Rec director, and that's something we can certainly figure out who the right people on that kind of management group are, and then things would end up getting approved by the council anyway.
Gotcha, thanks. I think that like Representative Powers had mentioned about like the historical value on there, and I think it's great that we are preserving that. But if like if somebody like archaeologists wanted to come in like from the tribe or something and set up shop and try to dig, that they weren't being restricted by somebody else. So it sounds like it's under control.
Thank you, Representative Flax. Any other questions?
Chair Washington, I have two more short ones. I'll
Okay.
try to be brief so Bruce can get out of there. Is this if this land is worth 1.1 million, why are they selling it for 800,000 to the town? Is it in the agreement that this is only to be used for open space?
So the property owner initially wanted 1.1 million for the property. When we had an appraisal done, and for these types of grants, there's a certain type of an appraisal that's done. It's called a yellow book appraisal, has a very high standard, and the comparable properties that it uses. That appraisal was actually $800,000. So, sorry, $880,000. The council, when we were going through this negotiation in executive session, and part of the reason why we have executive sessions to talk about property negotiations is because we want to make sure we're negotiating in private for the best deal for the town. We had worked out internally a high offer of $800,000. So just as if you were going to buy a house, maybe not in this current housing market, but if you're going to buy a car, you try to get the best deal you can. That's what we were trying to do. So that's what we put on the table. The property owner, I think also, really wants to see the property get preserved for the town. So I think it was great that the family that owns this said, you know what, we'll take a little bit less than we think it's worth because we see the benefit in the preservation of this. And I really want to give them a lot of accolades for selling it below the fair appraised value, because it's going to benefit many future generations in Groton.
Thank you. And one more question. How do you do fundraising for a situation like this? I mean, I mean, what kind of fundraising do you do? Do you ask corporations for money? How do you do this?
Well, it's
So-
not us doing, go ahead, John, sorry.
Yeah, we are not going to be asking people for money. So we have some volunteers who have done fundraising for other initiatives like this, for other open space acquisitions around town, and they're going to start getting the word out. We've been working with them a little bit. They've already been doing a lot of groundwork on this from day one when we're working towards signing a purchase and sales agreement. So there's a small group of very dedicated people in town that are going to help initiate that, and having it go through a 401c3.
501.
501. I know. I'm thinking
Right.
401ks. Yeah. 501c3. Too many acronyms. I'm sorry. I can't keep track of this stuff some days. And then that money would be donated to the town towards the purchase of this.
So bake
Yeah.
sales don't do it for it, right?
You just took the words out of my mouth. No bake sales as part of
No
this.
bake sale.
Nope.
All right.
If
thank
we
you.
get to that point, I'll look to all of you to help make some cookies for us. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, John.
Or you can have Bruce Flax make those, what did he make? Bagels.
Scones?
Those
Oh,
bagels he
bagels,
was
that's
making one
right.
time.
Talk my way into that.
So John, this land will always remain open space, never developed.
Correct.
Okay. I just have one question, and this would be my last question. What is a IOLTA account? It says such deposit will be held by buyer's attorney in its IOLTA account, and neither seller nor buyer shall be entitled to any interest related to such an account and or the deposit held in same.
It's like escrow, right?
So this is an escrow account.
Yes.
Okay. So why doesn't?
Yes, it's a
what-
trust account. Yep.
Okay. I didn't know what all those letters stood for. Okay.
It's an
Any other-
interest on lawyer trust.
Oh, okay. And who gets the interest? It says neither the buyer or seller should get the interest. I guess the attorneys get the interest, huh?
They gotta get their due, right?
Yeah. yeah.
From what if I can interject, because I have, I have an, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say it, so I probably shouldn't. One of my contractors at work has an IOLTA account, and it is interest from client fees that they earn. It's like any bank account or whatever, but that's what the IOLTA account is. It's interest earned on client fees.
Okay. All right. Any other
Thank you.
questions? Thanks, Kath. Any other questions? Sean, Clarence, Bruce, Chase, Kathy? Nothing?
I asked too many.
Okay. You never asked too many. Never.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Never.
This is the place to ask the question.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Sean.
Okay. Hearing no more questions, we can vote on the motion to have the town, a motion to recommend approval of the purchase of the Wolf Brook property to the full RTM, and to have the town manager sign all necessary documents to close on the property. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed, Foster.
Opposed, Chase, okay. And abstentions? All right, so approved. And that's it for tonight.
Can I ask John or John to get us some kind of an idea of how much more open space this town wants to have? Just so we can keep that in the back of our minds when these things crop up.
I think we got to do the plan of conservation and development again, John, yes? Right? So
Yeah.
we're in the process to determine that, or what?
Yeah, because I think that's a really tough question to answer, because depending on who you ask, many people are going to have very different answers. Some people think we have too much open space now. Others think we need more. Some people think we need just a little bit more. Some people think we need a lot more. Yeah, but from a larger town policy perspective, I believe, if memory serves correct, the plan of conservation and development has our goal is 21%, which is what we're floating around right now. I think it's still important for when key properties that have a lot of habitat value or historical value or parks and rec type of value, that's when we have to take it on a one by one of, is this something we're willing to do? But, for example, in the almost 7 years that I've been here, this is the first property that we've purchased for open space in the time that I've been here. So it's not that the town itself has been buying a lot of open space in the recent past.
Right. It's driven a lot by the volunteer groups, conservation groups, of which there are several. And they each have their goals.
I voted on this property because of the historical value and the ecological value to the property. That's the only reason I voted on this property. I do feel like Chase does, that we have to think about more open space on the other side of town, and that we really have to work diligently to make sure that we have more open space on that side of town.
Right, we should have open space on every section of town, and
Yeah.
then,
John, can you bring a map next time we have a meeting like this about open space so that we can look at the town and everybody can understand it clearer? Because this part of town is a very unique part of town. We border the city, okay? And then we only have so much area here that's not in federally held land. And the minute you break the plane between 117 and 184, it's a whole different animal of open space. You're not going to get it on the river here. It's impossible to do it unless the government gives us back money or the land.
Yeah,
I understand, but that's where the district that I represent is. So that's the constituents I'm trying to look out for. That's the only reason I'm asking the question. I understand. And even with the dog park,
My question is this, Chase. I live over here too. I don't know where you're going to get the land from. That's the whole problem. I mean, I'd like to have it. It's here. That's the thing I'm trying to say to you. I mean, I go all over the place. I walk the dog all over the town. On top of riding my bike all over the place. So I find that it's near impossible with the division of commercial property where Route 12 is and where we live. Because you're bordered by commercial residential properties. So and you can't, it's like the old saying is you can't grow land. It's either here or it's not.
John
Chase,
Reiner, is it possible, John Reiner, if you could bring that map to the RTM meeting? Because that will be a point of concern to some RTM members. And maybe if you can show them the map, that might be helpful.
Exactly.
Yeah, let me see what I can do. Putting together our open space map. Also, yeah, I'll see what I can do for Wednesday night's meeting.
Okay, thank you, John.
hey, Chase, can I ask you what would you want to see done with this land? Have them sell it privately and build on it, or what would you like to see? Or is it just spending the taxpayers' money that you don't like?
I think it's just I probably would have been in favor of this if it wasn't for all of the school properties that we've been selling to become apartment complexes. So it's like we're selling properties on one hand, and then we're going and buying properties on the other hand. And so I think it all just kind of feeds together. That's why it's hard to understand if there's not a long-term vision in terms of what are we doing with all of the space and what is the goal. I struggle with that.
I do agree with you on that. I want to know how much is too much.
Is that something that you're working on, John Reiner and John Burke, a long-term goal on the open space?
So something that, again, I think the plan of conservation and development speaks to that right now. And in talking with Mark Berry, our Parks and Rec director, I know that sometime soon he did want to look at updating the Parks and Recreation plan, because I think it's also what are people looking for more of? Are they looking for more open space, or are they looking for more parks and rec land? Are they looking for more active space, or just more areas that are forested? Because, you know, certain geographic areas in town are certainly limited by just the availability or lack of availability of land. You know, you look north of Route 184 and there's a lot of vacant land because it's also very incredibly difficult land to develop. Whereas south of 184, south of 95, certain areas are very developed and it's very small pockets. But I think that's something that we are still working on, and it's going to be an ever evolving conversation of the entire community.
Can this land that we're talking about purchasing, this property that we're talking about purchasing now, could that property ever be developed, or is that property undevelopable?
Oh, no, it certainly could be developed.
Oh, it could be.
Oh, yeah. In its current state, once we purchase it and there's conservation easements on it from the town, from the state, from Groton Open Space Association, that will be protected in perpetuity. But in its current state, yes, there was a development firm that had an option on the property that was not renewed, and we had the opportunity to purchase the property.
Okay, that might be a sticking point for some people, that the property could be developed, but we're not developing it. But I understand, because all the historical value and so forth and so on, we want to keep it as open space. I do understand that. Any other thoughts or comments or anything? All right. John, do you want to add anything? You or John Burt, or you all set?
I'm all set.
Think-
Just want
all
to thank
set.
you for putting this meeting together so quickly.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, do I have
Yeah,
a motion?
I'm sorry, we have the best chairman of all the committees, hands down.
Flattery
I
you
agree
get, you
100%.
Agreed.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? It is 7:14.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. And was
Second.
that you, Kathy, that seconded?
Yes.
Okay. And Sean and Kathy. Okay, we are adjourned. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see everyone on Wednesday at the RTM meeting. And thank you for attending tonight. It's nice
you.
to see your handsome and your pretty faces. Oh, that's not sexual harassment or anything. That's just a nice comment. All right. See you
Have a
later.
good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night.
everyone.
Thanks.